Well, this will be attempt number 4 to try and get this right, so I hope this one turns out better. Um, I read the chapter on Constantinople talking about Jerusalem. While, again, I will say this in this video as well, although I felt it was kind of a mistake, but I'm not sure why it says talking about Jerusalem because it only talks about Jerusalem for a very little bit towards the end of the chapter, and I was confused as to why he had a subtitle of talking about Jerusalem. So maybe you guys will help me out in the comment section. Um, I will say this, and this will definitely go into my essay that we write that's due June 1st, but I found it a little difficult, although interesting at the same time, that he incorporated the two different stories at the same time. To me, it was harder to read that way because it was hard to keep track of whose perspective he was writing about and when, I guess is the way to say it. But starts out the chapter with the description of the author entering Constantinople, and then goes on to give descriptions of what Ibn Battuta did. The first part is about him leaving Crimea and traveling to a mobile metropolis of Ozbeg Khan, which I'm hoping I say any of the odd names in here properly. No guarantees. I apologize. But he gives a very good description. Um, I have the book to keep track of it because it was easier than writing down a bunch of notes. We saw a vast city on the move, complete with mosques and bazaars, which I guess he's just talking about like the people being on the move because it would be kind of hard to have like a mosque or a bazaar. Well, a bazaar maybe not, but a mosque would definitely be hard to move, I would think. Um, but then he talks about like at the center was a golden pavilion covered with plaques of gold. And then later on in that paragraph, no, the next paragraph, it talks about Ozbeg's like number one sultana and the reason that he preferred her to others. I thought was rather interesting, although maybe not appropriate to talk about in a classroom setting. But the reason he did was a gynecological quirk, as it says in the book, although I'm pretty sure that today they probably would not describe it that way. Just saying. I thought that was rather interesting, especially the way like he described it. I thought was comical, but at the same time interesting. I guess if you guys have gotten this far in the book, you'll maybe understand. Um, but he goes on, talks more about Ozbeg, but then I thought another thing that was very interesting is the gift that Ibn Battuta is given when he leaves. Like it's a huge gift. Like I don't even want to imagine what it would be like to get a gift like this today because he's given. I'll just go ahead and read it. He's given 1,500 gold dinars, ingots of silver, and a large collection of horses, robes, and furs. Like this is an immense gift. I just found it very intriguing to think that he was given a gift that big when leaving from this person's like kingdom or city, I guess if you want to say. But next it moves on to talk about the author's Anatolian trip, and the fact that he traveled in the company of a large Bulgarian Turkish woman, a practitioner of Tai Chi. And the end part of the way he describes her, I thought was incredibly interesting, with a not unpleasing moustache. Had to add that part. That was kind of interesting. But then he talks about the domes bursting out of the backlit skyline, pavements tacky with muscle liquor. Like the way he describes things is so interesting and detailed. just very, very well done. And as it moves on more, as I said later on in the chapters, when it starts talking about the little bit that it does of Jerusalem, but the part that I thought was very interesting before it starts talking about Jerusalem is the fact that it gives a story about a king that gives up his kingdom to build a monastery on the outside of the walls of his kingdom, or it just says outside of this city, so maybe not outside the walls, because it doesn't give a description as to whether they did have walls, but he essentially gives up his kingship and gives it over to his son, which I thought was something that is very unheard of, because in the talkings of the history that I've had so far, I don't think there's ever been a time where a king has just willingly given up his kingdom and given it to his son. But it goes on to talk about Dome of the Rock and the Church of Resurrection in Bethlehem, which this is the part that I was talking about, which is pretty much the only part of this chapter that actually talks about Jerusalem. So I don't know why, but I found that very interesting as to the fact that he gave it, the title that way. So, but I'm starting to go on a little bit too much because I'm looking at my recording and I'm at 6.5 minutes now. So, all in all, he writes in a very interesting manner, although at times it is definitely difficult to follow. But the chapter is very interesting nonetheless in how he describes the things that he has in here from his time with again, I'm probably going to butcher his name, the Ozbeg Khan, and the way that he gets the things that they talk about and describes them from Ibn Battutu's perspective is very interesting. And then the details that he gives of his own are interesting. So I hope you guys enjoyed my little talk, although reading it is obviously better because this is just my brief perspective of it. But all in all, the chapter was very interesting, and the things that he describes are well worth reading about. Although, again, I say this, that it is difficult for me to keep track because he splits between, the two storylines. So it's a difficult way to read about it, I guess. Like I felt like it probably would have been better if he would have given the full storyline of Ibn Battuta and then talked about like his travels in all the different destinations that Ibn Battuta went. That may have worked a little bit better, but I'm honestly couldn't really say because obviously we don't have the comparison. But all in all, enjoyable. Thank you for watching, and I hope you guys have a great weekend.